Hello, I can't see you very well, it's a very bright stage, but my name's Miranda Sawyer. I'm here to talk to the fabulous Irvine Welsh. Let's give him a massive round of applause. Today, this very day, is the publication day of Irvine's latest book, which is Deadman Trousers, which will be on sale later for you all. He'll sign it. There's also a freebie, which is a kind of little small extract of ecstasy. Not ecstasy, the thing. Sorry. Maybe later. And that's called Rave, and that will be on sale later. But I will remind you at the end of our talk. But anyway, Deadman Trousers, which we're going to talk about at the beginning, is essentially another part of the kind of Trainspotting saga. So we've got Sick Boy, we've got Begbie, we've got Spud, we've got Renton, and it's a kind of continued adventures, which is what we want. So we're going to talk about that for a bit, and then we're going to talk about various tracks that Irvine has picked out for us to enjoy and for him to talk about. So, shall we start talking about the book?
Let us commence.
Let us commence. Okay. So, Deadman's Trousers. We're not going to give away what happens, but would you like to set it up, Irvine?
Yeah, I mean, I think this book is, I probably think it's about sort of twisted redemption book, really. If you see the first kind of like the Trainspotting, the book as being about like friendship and betrayal, and porno is about being kind of rivalry and revenge. This one's probably about redemption. It's that kind of nice little sort of arc for all these guys in a way.
There's still quite a lot of rivalry and revenge.
Yeah, there's tons of rivalry and revenge. I mean, it's like the interesting thing about the, so kind of looking at all these stories back to back, it's like they haven't really been a gang or mates for about kind of 30 odd years, and it's like kind of it kind of resonates with me because I've lived out of Edinburgh for most of my adult life, and whenever I go back, if I have an event like a book launch or a film premiere or some stage kind of thing, I just invite everybody, all my mates along, and I didn't realise that kind of these guys don't actually like each other, a lot of them now, they've kind of hated each other for years. I mean, it's like kind of somebody stabbed somebody's brother back in 1982, somebody kind of shagged somebody's girlfriend in 1997 or something like that, and I think of them as all being big buddies, And they're all sitting there kind of scowling at each other and scowling at me. What did you invite that bastard for? Like, what did you bring that cunt along for? And all that. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. So I kind of just basically, I still do that. I still just invite everybody and leave them to it, basically, and then kind of have a quick drink and then get out. And
I was going to say, do you not just sit in the corner and watch it go on?
Read about the mass arrests in the Edinburgh Evening News the next again day. Yeah.
It is interesting, though, that you left, essentially, given that, if you think about the revisiting of Trainspotting, although it's an international book, really, it's all rooted. There is the roots are in Edinburgh still, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, it's always going to be there, and it's like it's because I haven't lived there consistently. I mean, I've always been drawn back. I've always gone back for a couple of years at a time. I've still got a flat there, and I go there quite a lot to write. And I've kept it, I've just kept up with all the friendships over the years that I've kind of made there. So I still feel quite connected to it, even though I've not, it's not been my kind of main residence, if you like, for quite a while now.
And what do you feel about, I mean, obviously Trainspotting 2 came out last year, was it? The year before?
Yeah, last year, it was February, January.
Time goes funny for me. But the characters are there, the same characters, but when you compare them with the books that you've written about the characters, I love the films. Both of those films I think are really brilliant. That they, the characters are not as nasty as your books, really, are they?
Yeah.
I just want to say they're not quite as dark.
I think what you do is when you're casting kind of difficult characters in a movie, you have to cast somebody that people like. You don't want to cast somebody that people don't like as a bastard, basically. You've got to cast a nice guy, So it's like you can have like Bruce Robertson in Filth being absolutely horrible, and people will go, it's just James McAvoy acting now. He's a really a nice guy.
He's so cute.
And you get that kind of, and you get that with Ewan McGregor as Renton and all that, and Bobby Carlyle as Begbie. You get a kind of, you get a little bit of a premium, because nobody wants to see somebody that could be really, really kind of sort of could be a bit dodgy playing somebody horrible, and they're kind of, and they think, yeah, they're just like that, basically, right? So so you have to kind of you have to cast nicer, and it's like film is just a glamorizing kind of medium. I mean, actors look better than real people. That's why they're actors, basically.
Yeah, and they're really charismatic. That's why they do their job.
Yeah, no matter how much you grunge them up, basically, they're always going to look better than the kind of than their real life equivalents.
Yeah, that's very true. Did you enjoy the films?
Yeah, I did. I mean, they were both great films in their own way. I mean, I've had 5 kind of adaptations now, and probably another couple will come, within the course of time. But I've enjoyed them all in different ways. They've been varyingly kind of successful and unsuccessful. I think certainly the 2 Trainspotting ones and Filth have been very successful. Acid House, kind of grungy and cool, but not massively commercial, and Ecstasy not really a success at all. But I've enjoyed working on them all.
Yeah. And okay, let's go back to the book. When you think about that, you're going to write a book. Obviously, that you have created an entire world of different characters that you can visit. When do you know that? When do you feel like it's time to revisit or call back on or recall earlier lives of the kind of, I'm going to call them the Trainspotting crew? We know who we mean.
Yeah, you don't. It's funny because you don't really. I think if you're writing a screenplay, or if you're writing genre, if you're writing kind of crime or thrillers, or I think you get to pick more in a way what you're kind of writing about. If you're writing the kind of stuff that I write, I mean, I tend to let the subconscious kind of sort of carry the burden, basically, and just kind of, especially for the first draft, I'll kind of start composing a bit more in subsequent drafts. But the first draft, I basically fire it out. And when you do that, you're kind of a prisoner of whatever's lurking in the recesses of your brain at the time. So the book kind of chooses you, the next book, rather than you pick the book.
I don't really want to think about your subconscious, I have to say.
Everybody's subconscious is terrible. Just some of us have got the balls to get out on fucking paper.
There's some great set pieces, I suppose. I mean, is that what you call them? Kind of events or kind of scenes within the book, aren't they? Are you the kind of writer that hears things maybe when you've met all your friends from Edinburgh and go, okay, they all hate each other, and you hear things and you think, okay, this might be good or this might be good, or is it genuinely your subconscious coming out?
It's a big soup, You don't really. Sometimes you think that you've just thought of something original, and then somebody will say, "Oh, remember that happened?" And you go, "Oh, fuck yeah, it did." And then you worry, and then you start sweating. You think somebody's going to recognise this scene or this part of this incident. But I mean, it's like, and I think you're always, if you're a fiction writer, you're always asking, what if? Basically, you're saying, well, this happened, that happened. What if it wasn't 2 guys? What if it was 2 women? What if it was what if it wasn't 2 young women? What if it was one was an older, one was younger? What if so you're kind of trying to sort of mix everything up and kind of just change it around and see how the kind of narrative and story changes. What if it what if it wasn't a kind of a sort of I don't know, like a plastic duck but an iron glove or something like that, all that kind of stuff.
Okay. There's a bit of this, I'm going to ask you to read in a couple of seconds, but there's a kind of format in the middle of the book which I really enjoyed, which is basically some of the characters take DMT, and there's a kind of format change within the book that I really enjoyed. Was that to kind of just convey the... Maybe we should explain that.
Yeah, I mean, I got involved in taking DMT last year just to sort of try it again. I'd taken it about 10 years ago, and it was very intense, and I thought, I'll take DMT again and just to
shift your brain.
Yeah, just to see kind of, because I was a bit drunk when I took it the last time, and I thought, I'm going to take it absolutely sober and straight as it should be taken, kind of almost ritualistically and all that. And a couple of pals and I, a few summers back, we took some DMT, and it was incredibly intense. And I thought, the only way I can do justice to that experience in literature is to sort of get a good graphic novelist. And so asked Dan McDade if he would, who had worked with in the past, if he would kind of do the DMT scenes, the DMT recollections for the characters as a graphic novel. So it turns into a graphic novel. So you've actually got a comic within this book, which is brilliant.
Yeah, it is brilliant. And when you, I know now these days, obviously, as everyone gets older, there's times when you're pretty almost sober, you're working out, you're, kind of. I don't know. I always think if you was kind of American.
I have my Pilates now in Miami Beach,
and then there's times when you're not. How do you pick or move between the two?
I mean, but again, it's like circumstance picks you. In America, in Miami Beach, nice and fit and healthy, kind of Pilates with the Real Housewives of Miami Beach, boxing in the afternoon, kind of running around, sort of kind of on the beach and all that kind of stuff.
Are you in shorts?
Back here, yes, in shorts, kind of. You sometimes speedos, kind of with honey scented pheromone spray, kind of.
Sounds great.
But here it's like kind of, it's a white milk bottle skin, the beer gut, and kind of 5 jumpers, basically, like, shivering away, what my leaf walk like.
And so is it when you're shivering away that you think, okay, never mind the Pilates, I'll just take some DMT?
Yeah, well, DMT is not a hedonistic or party drug,
no.
So it's much more of an experimental thing, and when you do it, you don't really want to do it again. You think that was very intense, but I've kind of done that now, and let me reflect on this. Yeah.
And did you have? Sorry, it seems to have turned into a kind of talk about DMT. We'll move on back to the writing. But did you have kind of flashbacks? That's what everybody seems to have.
I had my little gnomes. That kind of your little Lego gnomes take you on a little walk and all that. And
it's
and
just completely universal. It happens to everyone who takes
the
DMT.
mountain. I didn't have the Last Supper experience that a lot of people get. Like, yeah.
There you go. Okay, shall we do some... Would you like to read a bit from the book?
I would love to read a bit, yeah. Let me just... Yeah, I'm going to stand up and read. And
hold them at you, right?
Yeah.
Oh, do you want me to? Shall I explain? Okay, I don't know.
You explain. You're more.
I've not taken it. I have to say, but I'm not like. Basically, DMT is a kind of. It's a very strong hallucinogenic, and people take it and go on a trip. And quite often, when they go on this trip, they can't really remember what's happening, but they recall later on, and it tends to come back in flashbacks. You know how I know this? Sean Ryder told me. And it tends to come in flashback, and you break through the matrix, and everybody sees little gnomes or little men, and they tell you the meaning of life. That is the point.
That's what happens, and it's not like unlike acid. It's not. You don't really kind of. You actually go to a different place. If you take an acid, it's just a distortion of what's actually there. But with DMT, you go to a different place. They reckon that it's like when you when you die, the pituitary gland opens up. And you reckon that's what the DMT does. It opens that up. So the plus side is if you take DMT and you use up all your pituitary gland kind of stuff, you might never die. So yeah, I'm going to just do a very short passage because I'm going to do this one because it's set in London. I read it last night, so apologies if anybody was there last night at the Rio Cinema in Hackney. And it's Sick Boy. And he's kind of reflecting a little bit on what he's done. He's got into a lot of trouble at this stage because he's got a podiatrist brother-in-law, and a podiatrist, if nobody is a guy who works on feet. He's a kind of foot doctor, and he spiked a guy with MDMA powder and set him up with this girl and forced him into this situation of infidelity with his own sister's husband. And then kind of managed to kind of to inadvertently kind of grass him up to his sister by sending him the sex tape that he made with this woman. So she's heartbroken, and now he's also being blackmailed by this guy Syme, who is a kind of who runs these saunas, these brothels in Edinburgh. So he's down in London running his escort agency, and he's kind of under a bit of pressure, basically. So he's going to meet his son. I emerged from the building site at Tottenham Court Road and a skyward glance shows darkening clouds bunching together. There's a sharp chill in the air as I dig out my phones from the inside pocket of my Hugo Boss leather jacket. All messages to be disregarded, except one from Ben. Just got here, we'll get them in. I've been steadfastly avoiding Edinburgh, but it hasn't been avoiding me. I'm ruining that festive day I put the MDMA powder in that self-indulgent weakling sex case's drink. I couldn't have envisaged that my playful alchemy would have meant fucking months of fielding correspondence from a heartbroken Carlotta in the weaselly brothel keeper's sign. And there's fuck all I can do to bring their boy back from Thailand. Pompous presbo shit with his fucking round-the-world plane ticket and his career break. It's something I have to do, said the prick in his last ludicrous email before going completely offline, leaving his missus and his son distraught, punishing them for his nefarious deeds. What a cunt. I fight through the blocked-off roads into Soho. The IRA or ISIS never created anything like as much chaos and demoralisation in London as the neoliberal planet rapists with their corporate vanity construction projects. Sure enough, a steady rain is beginning to fall and cold splatters. My son has asked me to meet him for a drink in a public house of zero repute, a bland haunt of office workers and tourists. It dawns on me that I've spent practically no time with him recently. I'm feeling guilty as I enter the busy bar. He's already gotten a seat at the corner where 2 pints of Stella fizz on a wooden table. We are close to an imitation fire with a low grate. A pleasing smell of polish fills the air. We exchange greetings, and Ben, who looks troubled, suddenly fixes me in a gaze. Dad, there's something I need to say to you. I know, I've been a self-absorbed wanker. I've just had so many things on, this mess back in Scotters with your uncle freaking out and your aunt being in pieces. It means I've had to... This isn't about you! Or them, he snaps, like he's at the end of his tether. His neck is red and his eyes glisten. This startles me. Ben has always been a cool, taciturn lad, more placid Englishman or even stoical Scot than tempestuous Italian. I told you I was seeing somebody. Aye, this wee bird you're knocking off, you sly. It's not a bird. He pauses. It's a bloke. I'm gay. I'll have a boyfriend. And he spits a word out, indicating how he resolves a certain issue I now presume he has to contend regularly with. He's looking at me with a belligerent, counter-aggressive set to his chin, as if he expects me to freak out and give him the shit he probably got for these cunts down in Surrey. But all I feel is a warm, relieved glow. While I never saw this coming, I'm absolutely delighted, as I've always secretly hoped for a gay son. I would have hated to have had that heterosexual shagger competitive thing that my dad had with me. Excellent! I was saying, this is great, I've got a gay son! Good on you, bud! I punch his arm. He looks at me in shock, his brows rising. You're not upset? I jab a finger at him. We're talking gay. Totally gay, not bi, right? Yeah, I'm only into guys, not girls at all. Fucking brilliant! This is the best news ever! Cheers! I raise a glass in toast. He looks flabbergasted, but clinks it with his own. I thought you'd, well... I take a gulp of Stella back, smacking my lips together. I would probably have been a bit jealous if you were bi, as you'd have more shagging options than me, I explain. You see, I always wanted to be bisexual. Could never get on with men, though. Although I do like a lassie to put a strap on and give it to me up the... Dad! I'm delighted you're taking this so well, but I don't want to hear all this stuff. Fair enough, but it's no skin off my nose. We're Hull versus Wasps, different codes, Union versus League. You're not likely to bring in some hot wee torpedo-titted vixen to make me jealous like I did with my father. Now, what about the Surrey people? Mum's pretty upset and Gran's just inconsolable. She can barely bring herself to look at me, he says, genuinely saddened. I shake my head slowly in disgust as old bile dredged up ferments in my gut. Fucking old boiler! Wasn't he shy about taking a Jocko Aitai portion back in that Tuscan holiday, yet would deny her first grandchild the same fucking pleasure? Fuck these bigots. It's the 21st century. I don't care who you shag, as long as you shag with a vengeance. His face lights up at that one. Oh, we do in every conceivable way. I'm moving into his flat in Tufnell Park. Already the neighbours have been complaining about the noise. That's my boy! I punch his arm affectionately again. Right, you fucking raving arse bandit, up to that bar and make mine a double Macallan's. He complies and we both end up in a bit of a state. My son is gay! What a fucking blessing! Thank you for listening, folks. Cheers.
Now I'm going to do 2 more questions about the book, and then we're going to start moving through all the tracks that you've chosen. But my first question is one that you can't really answer, but it is true, is it not, that somebody important dies in this book?
No. They're all...
I put it to you, sir, that they do.
I contend that they're all fictional characters, and therefore none of them are as important as us here in this room in the real world.
There's a death. I warn you. But we're not going to talk anything about that.
I'm not going to say who it is, but if you read my lips, you'll get a kind of idea.
And also, there's quite a lot around the art world, isn't there? Because of Begbie, but we need to call him something different now. We need to call him Jim Francis. This, I have to say, when I first read Trainspotting, when I went through the Begbie and art was not something I really would have put together.
Yeah, I mean, I was quite desperate to know what to do with Begbie because he was basically dead as a character. You know, he was kind of, if he had continued in that trajectory, he was either physically dead or he was in prison. So he was dramatically kind of over as a character. And the only way I could resurrect him was to think of what would happen to somebody. How could somebody change their life around very radically? You know, when they get to this point, you know, usually in their 40s, this menopausal thing, they look back in life and they think, I've really fucked this up. You know, I've spent most of my life in jail. How do I get out of this? How do I kind of change things? It's usually kind of 2 things, kind of art and love are probably the only things that can really do that. You know, so I thought with Begbie, I've got to hit him with both because that's the only way that it's going to happen. And I thought, well, it would be more interesting if it actually didn't happen, if he was just kind of gaming and scamming and becoming a better kind of psychopath, a kind of more calculated, kind of under the radar one, you know? Yeah,
under the radar psychopath, yes, indeed. Okay, so I'm sorry for the short, kind of brief discussion of the book, but we're going to move through some of Irvine's choices in music, which may well impact on books as well. But we're going to start off. Irvine had chosen 14 tracks, but we've been told we haven't got enough time. We've probably even got enough time for the ones that we've picked now. But the first one up is From Me to You by the Beatles. Why did you pick this track?
It's the first song I can actually consciously remember hearing, you know, and I must have been about 3 or 4, and I heard music playing, and I got up in the night, and I opened the door, and my mother and father were kind of dancing with each other in the dark to this song, and it was kind of fully clothed as far as I recall. Like, you know, I can't actually 100% testify to that, but it was the 60s after all. Like, you know, so yeah, and it was like kind of, it just seemed to be an interesting thing to do. You know, I was as a kid, you know, to play music and kind of dance together to music. It was like something that kind of really stuck with me. And you know, they picked me up and stuck me on the sideboard so I could kind of try and dance along to it as well. So it was just a very kind of early and very kind of pleasant memory, basically. Yeah, okay. And did you continue listening to the Beatles when you were older, or? No, I kind of rebelled against them, like, because you know, your parents' music you don't like really, like, you know. So the Beatles and Elvis and Frank Sinatra, I kind of push. I love now, but I didn't at the time. Basically. And did they play that a lot? All those tracks a lot? Yeah, it was always Sinatra and the Beatles and Elvis Presley, basically all the time. Yeah. Okay. Well, shall we hear it?
Okay, so that was the Beatles from Me to You, and it's very lovely to hear it, I think, on these speakers. You can hear everything. It's a bit like we're in the same room as the Beatles, although obviously we are not. We are in the room with Irvine. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what music means to you anyway. It's obviously been it's kind of a driving force through a lot of your writing, and you DJ yourself, and you've made videos with bands and stuff. It's obviously incredibly important to you. When did you kind of realise it was?
Kind of very early on, really, and it was always it was the biggest frustration that I was always terrible at music. I mean, everything I've loved, like kind of music, football, boxing, painting, I've always been really shite at, basically. And literature, I never really cared that much about, you know. And it's something that I've kind of strange, paradoxically, I've been successful in. And I think that the way that I write. Is very much it's kind of, you know, when I first started to find a way into writing, it was I was going to a lot of house music clubs, and I wanted to get approximate the kind of 4/4 beat, you know, keep the pages turning in the same way that the 4/4 beat kind of drives people across the dance floor, and I wanted to you know, when I wrote in standard English, it wasn't coming alive for me. The characters weren't coming alive, so I wanted to kind of. I found that the phonetic kind of Scots language it's more performative. It's more beaty, you know. It's because it's an oral language basically. It's not kind of meant to be written. It's meant to be kind of spoken and kind of performed and rapped almost. So. So that was a kind of, you know, that was, you know, it was a direct segue, and it was also kind of through writing ballads, basically, you know. I would mess around in bands, and people would, I would say, I've written this song, and everybody would go, the lyrics are no bad, but these chords are fucking rubbish, like, you know, let me put something else in here, like, you know. So I realised that, you know, just stick to the lyrics, don't try and kind of write any kind of song on top of it. But yeah, it was. But it was always, you know, it was a big frustration that I was terrible at. It was a really bad musician. I was a terrible guitarist who became a terrible bassist, as so many of them do. And I remember I was passing like Bruce's record shop in Edinburgh was a shop. Like Bruce Finlay, who used to be the Simple Minds manager. He had this record shop in Edinburgh, and all the bands used to write in, like, you know, Drummer Wanted and all this sort of stuff. And I remember that scanning these adverts and all that. I just saw like bassist wanted, and I go, somebody's looking for a bassist. And I realised it was my mate Eric's phone number. The guy was the guitarist in the band, like, you know. And so I went round to the phone box, and I went, yeah, I hear you put on a different voice. I hear you're looking for a bassist. And he goes, the guy we've got is fucking rubbish. He's my mate. He's my mate, but he's a cunt. He thinks it's his band. It's my fucking band. I went, you fucking bastard! Like, you know? So we never spoke for about 18 months after that. And any band that I joined, they got a level of proficiency. I was the first one to get the elbows. So the writing was on the wall, basically.
So you must have enjoyed it very much then when the kind of Choose Life, I want to say rap, it's not really a rap, is it? But then almost immediately got made into a house record, didn't it?
Yeah. No, it was great. It was like, fuck you, all you bastards who threw me out of bands.
Yeah, fuck you, I can play. Okay, so the next track we got is Bowie, Starman. So, do you want to talk about when you first heard that and what that meant to you?
Well, this is great, because this was like the kind of generation gap thing, you know. I've spoken about my mum and dad, and you know, the reverence that I had as a kid and all that for their music. This is like when kind of the adolescent thing, when it's not quite, the garden isn't quite as rosy, basically. And it was great, you know, because when you saw Bowie and Mick Ronson camping it up on top of the Pops and all that, and you could see my dad sitting back in the armchair, with the knuckles white and tense and all that, and my mother like kind of, what's going on, you know? And it was great, and you're looking at what's on the screen, you're looking at them, and you're thinking, this is great, this is bugging the fucking shit out of them, you know, which is what you want when you're that age, like, you know, this is getting a fantastic reaction from them, and, you know, instantly kind of, I loved him after that. Bowie could do no wrong, and still can do no wrong, you know, so that was it, I was in, basically.
It's an amazing privilege, I think, of that age, because it happened through various Top of the Pops, to have those moments where there's a thing that all the generation kind of enjoys at the same time and is a turning point, and that is genuinely a turning point for so many people, isn't it?
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. Should we hear it, Starman?
There's a starman waiting in the sky.
Okay, so there was obviously the fantastic David Bowie with Starman. I feel we should talk about David Bowie a bit more. Were you? Did you continue to be a fan? Because obviously you went through lots of different, kind of slightly not so good phases and great phases.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of, in a way, it was, it's, you kind of find yourself reciting all these cliches about him, but he did set the kind of template almost for any kind of wannabe working class artist. And these were the days, when you think about the whole backdrop to Bowie, these were the days when working class people kind of, you had decent dole payments, you could go to university and get a full grant, you could kind of get pay £1 to do an A-level to go to university if you had messed up your kind of your school time, and you could just you could go from, you had tax rebates, you could go from one job to another, full employment. And Bowie took place in the context of this. It didn't seem like it at the time, but it took place in this context of incredible opportunity and freedom for young working class people. And he was a guy that kind of that all this kind of economic kind of an educational opportunity that was this kind of seed corn. He was the guy that provided the sort of the cultural kind of sort of ignition, the cultural kind of sort of torch paper, basically, to set the whole thing alight. And it was, and he was basically a kind of a great educator, from people of my generation. From Bowie, you got into, he introduced you to soul, he introduced you to electro music, Kraftwerk, and all that. He just went right through, the Iggy and the Stooges and the Velvet Underground, and he went right. Basically, he paraded his kind of record collection, and he kind of, and he also showed that it wasn't enough just to kind of have an idea. Or to, it wasn't enough just to be an acolyte of good stuff. You had to actually make it your own and transform it in the process, So he kind of he showed you that kind of the material, kind of the raw material of life that was around you, was not just there to be enjoyed. All these things, like all the music, all these books, all these kind of movies. They weren't just there to be enjoyed. They were there to be used in some way as well. They were there to be kind of filtered through your own lens and kind of used to create something else.
Yeah. Did you? I mean, you lived in America for a long time. Did you find that when he died, obviously it was a massive, it's just an enormous deal here. Was it a big deal there? Were you there?
I think it was a huge deal everywhere. I mean, I kind of, I got all that sort of kind of horrible, pompous way, that you do when you've kind of grown up with somebody and they've been your kind of main man and all that. And you go, you don't understand Bowie, you don't understand. you had to have come for a council scheme to understand Bowie, basically, and all that kind of stuff. But there was a tremendous kind of sense of proprietary. But I mean, he was obviously a massive kind of global superstar, really, and his music and his life touched kind of so many people and inspired so many people. So it's funny because I actually stood him up twice. I never met him.
Why did you stand him up?
I stood him up, but the first time I stood him up was at the Trainspotting party in New York, which he was hosting. And what happened is that, I thought, I'm not going to go there because Bowie's going to be there, because I'm going to turn into a 14-year-old girl and make a fool of myself over him. And there's also a thing that I always regarded him as like, I want somebody that's a kind of iconic god to me. I don't want him to be human, almost. I want him to be the kind of Starman, basically. So I was actually, that night when Bowie was on stage with the Trainspotting guys presenting the film in New York, I was in the Windsor Buffet in Leith on ecstasy doing a pub quiz, basically. And completely, me, Paul, Ricky and Liverpool Sean had formed a team, and we went and we're taking these pills and we're trying to do the pub quiz, and all these guys with the thick iron splitters were going mental at us, basically, because we kept fucking it up. We got the lowest ever score recorded in the Windsor Buffet. we'd have the answer, and then we'd just debate it for hours, like, if we get to fill it in on the sheet, basically, like. So that was it. And the next time after that, he invited me to dinner at the ubiquitous Chip restaurant in Glasgow when he was doing the Glass Spider tour. And again, I kind of, I sort of hesitated a bit, but again, I stood him up, you know. And I'm kind of glad I did, because I've become friends with Iggy Pop, who lives in Miami, and he was, one of Bowie's best friends. And he goes, Irvine, you should have met David. You would have loved him, man. And I go, yeah, but he's too iconic for me. He goes, what about me? I must have been fucking iconic. And I says, yeah, but you're a kind of matey figure, like, you know, he's, you told me when you first met me I was a godlike figure. I said, yeah, but a kind of different kind of god, like.
Okay, let's move on to the next track, which is Anarchy in the UK, Sex Pistols, which is obviously it's like a starting gun, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Where did you hear it, and where were you?
I was working as a TV and radio mechanic, and kind of fixing TVs and radios at Telectra House in Leith, which is part of the co-op, basically. And I remember, like, there was, it was almost it was seen as quite a good trade to have, because you still had transistors sets, and sometimes you even had the old valve sets, and kind of you had to bring them in and repair them and all that. And now it's kind of obviously you just get a new telly, or you don't even bother putting the circuit board in it. You just get a brand new TV because it could be made at zero cost. But it was seen as this kind of really quite a high-end trade, and it was kind of and I hated it. I was always like kind of I was sitting there, and I remember I brought Anarchy in the UK in the black cover. And myself and my pal were playing this all the time, and all the older guys we were the apprentices, and the older guys were going, what the fuck is that shit? That's no fucking music. And I remember, like, when I was at the workbench, there was this kind of brown spot on the wall, and I don't know how it got there, this brown spot. It just seemed to be like a splatter from something, but it was there, and it was just on the wall. And it used to bug the fuck out of me. I just, every day I'd come in, if I was hungover, I'd look at this brown spot, and I'd just work away, and then I just thought, fuck it. I got up on the workbench with a chisel, and I just started digging the brown spot and the plaster out the wall, going absolutely mental. And I thought, like, this is it. I've got to get the fuck out of here, like, So I was off down to London to my aunt's in Southall, and getting into punk, basically.
And you did form a band, yeah, down there.
Yeah. I mean, again, it went the same way as other ones, basically. Like,
but I can't believe it's punk. Anyone can do punk.
Yes, well, that's a theory. But the idea is that you start off shite and you get better. You get marginally better. And it's like especially if you've got these kind of sort of kind of avant-garde type punk, like kind of ATV Subway Sect type pretensions, like, you think, nah.
And when you moved to London, so you lived most of your life in Edinburgh, you moved down to London and left your kind of engineering job, or radio mentoring job. What did you end up doing, and how did you enjoy it? Did you like London?
Yeah, I did. I really liked it, and it was, I didn't get, because I liked it because I kind of, I met a lot of good people, but I got to see a lot of kind of crap bands. Really, I never got to see the Pistols. I got to see the Clash once, but the bands I used to go to the Vortex in Soho, and used to see like kind of bands like kind of the UK Subs and Chelsea and 999, and kind of sort of bands that weren't particularly regarded as brilliant, but I liked the vibe, and I liked the people that kind of went along to see these, and it was all people that had come from. It tended to be more people from council estates and kind of artsy, kind of sort of art school types that kind of were more into the Clash.
Yeah. And where did you live?
I lived originally at my aunt's in Southall, which was great because I was just spoiled, basically. I could go back out there, and then I got I moved into a squat actually in South Africa Road, very near the QPR ground in Shepherd's Bush. And then I kind of gravitated over to Hackney, to Queensbridge Road, and then Amherst Road, and stayed over that kind of side for a bit. And I kind of, I would stay down, and you could do this then, I would stay down here for about maybe about 6 months, a year. And then when people got fed up with me, I would move back to Edinburgh. And then when they got fed up with me here, I'd move back down. And that's been a kind of pattern of my life, basically. Stick around somewhere until somebody gets sick of you, and then kind of go, basically, find somewhere else.
Move on. Okay, we should hear it. I'm sorry we haven't played Anarchy in the UK. Sorry, let's hear Anarchy in the UK. Okay, so that was the Sex Pistols, obviously. We were just discussing about how low John Lydon's voice is in that track. It's quite weird, because obviously you always think of his voice as being kind of forward, but it's not. Anyway, no. Just thought I'd mention that bit of a music thing. Okay, so the next track we've got is Velvets. I'm Waiting for My Man. Which, okay, shall we talk about the Velvets?
Yeah.
Another one that changed everything. Everything you've brought is kind of pretty iconic, isn't it? There's no kind of half-assed acts here.
Yeah, I mean that was a kind of the Velvets. It's a weird thing to say in a way, but. I think when I started using heroin, it was like I was immersed in all these kind of in all that kind of music, all that druggy music, basically. And I think there's two types of people who really become heroin addicts. I think the first type of person is somebody who's got some kind of unresolved sort of issues, and they're using it as a kind of pain management thing, either as like kind of physical or psychic pain. They might have had some kind of abuse or trauma that they've not worked their way around. They might have some anxiety issues, or they might have some kind of depression issues. And I think it's very, very difficult for people like that to get off a drug like that, because there's nothing, there's pain there that has to be worked through and negotiated in other ways. For somebody like me, it's more of a kind of hedonistic thing, because you've tried every other drug and you're enticed in a way by the kind of glamour of it all. And it was like a kind of a close friend of mine that I got involved in heroin with. It almost like kind of mirrors the rent and sick boy relationship. I mean, neither of these two guys would have been junkies if it hadn't been for the other one. It's a kind of folie à deux type of thing. And it's fun. We used to listen to the Velvets all the time, and particularly this song,
Yeah.
And it's kind of strange that it took us a long, long time when we both got clean to become friends again, because we didn't really trust being with each other almost. That
You didn't trust each other because you thought you'd go back on heroin, or you just didn't trust your relationship?
We didn't trust the fact that we wouldn't egg each other on to sort of to either that or something else again. It's like it's that kind of that chemistry that some kind of people have. You've always had. There's always people that in life that they're going to kind of if they doesn't matter how many times they meet up, they're going to end up taking drugs together, or they're going to end up shagging each other, or whatever. There's something there that is like kind of a sort of high kind of dopamine level kind of connection, basically. And it took us a long time to kind of to actually. We were always friends, but it took us a long time to kind of regenerate that friendship on a kind of ongoing basis. And
you mentioned Sick Boy and Renton, and when you're talking about it, that's obviously what one thinks of. Would you classify their relationship as one that they just can't? It sounds like you sorted out your relationship with your friend, but they haven't.
Yeah, I think it's a very kind of competitive relationship. Basically, it's like kind of. It's two people who always who don't necessarily want to have the last word all the time in interactions with everybody else, but they just have to have it with each other, and they're in this constant competition with each other to be the last person who goes home, basically.
Yeah. Okay. That's so true. And when you started taking heroin, how long did you take it for, and why did you stop? Sometimes people don't really know why they do.
I think it's very hard to stay on heroin if you've no good reasons to. I think it's it's very difficult to kind of to be a junkie indefinitely unless there's something driving it. And there kind of wasn't really with me. I think it's something that it was it's something like I mean, I was probably kind of heroin addict for about 2 years, and the first year I thought that nobody noticed. But they did, you know, they obviously
Surprise,
did. But you
surprise,
kind of
they
think that, yeah, you're kind of, it was funny because I had the first kind of epiphany I had that something might be wrong was that I thought I should phone my girlfriend. I've not spoken to her in a couple of days, like, you know. So I phoned her up, and she goes, "Where the fuck have you been?" And I said, "Well, we just, you know." She says, "No," she says, "That was 3 weeks ago. You know, you've not spoken to me for 3 weeks. I don't know where you've been," and all that. And I thought, "Fuck, something's gone wrong here somewhere along the line." But you still have that vanity that nobody really notices. You know, that you're kind of, your mum never notices there's a tenner missing from her purse and all that sort of stuff. Like, you know, and you kind of, but there's a time when things start to kind of fall apart, basically. And when I first tried to come off heroin, it was like, you know, I did, but I wasn't really sincere in wanting to come off. Like a lot of people, I wanted to kind of use less so that I could go back and to have a manageable kind of habit. I didn't really want to stop. But once I kind of decided that I did want to, it wasn't a big problem really. I mean, it's horrible coming off it, obviously, but it wasn't a really big problem staying off it.
Because it was a mental thing and you decided.
Yeah, it's almost like you kind of done that and you know where it's going and where it's taking you, and you don't really think there's not really that much point in doing it again. There's nothing that's driving me to do it again.
Yeah, okay. We need to hear that. So I keep wanting to move on and I forget to play the tracks, but should we just talk about the Velvets anyway?
Yes.
Because obviously, I mean, to be honest, if there's ever a kind of advert for heroin, it's like a bit, you know, you want to listen to the Velvets and then say, "I'm waiting for the man." Okay, I'll try it. You know,
Yeah,
make it sound very seductive.
Yeah, it is very seductive. It was for me at the time. The music was very seductive because the Velvet's music is really beautiful as well. You know, it's kind of dark and menacing, but it's incredibly gorgeous too. You know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's hear it then.
I'm waiting for my man.
Okay, that was the Velvet Underground. I'm waiting for my man. I can't believe how long ago that was made. We were just saying it's ridiculous. It was made 10 years before it should have been, really. It's just, what an amazing track. Yeah. Anyway, so the next track is slightly different, but equally brilliant. It is Chic, I Want Your Love.
Yeah.
Come on, we'll move into the disco section.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of, I always loved disco. Particularly, you know, I loved Chic and Sister Sledge and the Bee Gees and all that sort of stuff. And it was always a kind of guilty pleasure for me because everybody was supposed to be like a punk and all that. And I would get punked up on the Friday and go to some club and kind of sort of just jump around and sort of. But on Saturday, I like to get togged up and basically get up into a club and kind of and hear all these fantastic kind of sort of disco. And the best disco came out in the 70s, basically. Like, you know, hear all that great music and
hang on,
dance.
I need to stop you now because I need to know exactly what club you were going to and what you were wearing.
Right, God, there's some really embarrassing pictures, like, you know. But it was like the Saturday Night Fever kind of thing was huge, like, you know. And you pretended not to be into it, but it was all that sort of stuff, really. And I used to go to these clubs in Edinburgh, like Clouds and the Americana, and it was, you know, it was very much a kind of a guilty pleasure, and you always thought, God, thank goodness my mates are going to. You know, I hope they just don't see me. Kind of, my punk mates don't see me sneaking in to the.
But did you literally have to put flares on?
Yeah, definitely, kind of.
That's
and
so
it was,
brilliant.
You know,
you have one set of trousers for one day.
Yeah.
One set of trousers for the next.
Two separate kind of sections in the wardrobe, basically, like. And it was, to me, it was a great thing. And again, it's like. Again, it's the influence of Bowie. You know, you could do that. You could have these kind of. You're allowed to kind of have these different segments, and I kind of always thought punk was a fantastic education for 6 months. But if you didn't get it after that as a punk, I wasn't going to kind of. You know, I wasn't going to be a kind of a youth cult punk as such. You know, I was kind of. I was a child of Bowie, so I was going to move through all these different sort of musical forms, basically, and all these fashion kind of forms. And it was like, I mean, disco was great, and obviously there's kind of, you know, there's, you know, it's like there's women there. You know, there wasn't really so much in the punk. There wasn't so much in the punk
Not quite
scene.
so
like,
much. Yeah. So the women there, I want to know also, I mean, if you go to a disco of this type, you must have danced.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you have particular moves, or were you just...
Yeah, I mean, I kind of...
Exactly,
do you want me?
we need to see the moves. We could perhaps all join in when the track's played.
I'm happy to burst out some moves, like, we just clear a little bit of a space away. But, yeah, I've always liked to dance. Again, it's one of these things that, a bit like anything, it's like, I'm not a particularly great dancer, and I've kind of, I've made a bit of a fool of myself at Northern Soul clubs, trying to sort of, to burst out moves that I couldn't, I'm not, if you're a big kind of gangling streak of piss like I am, you're not really meant to do these Northern Soul moves. It's kind of, so I've not got the centre of gravity for them, but, I mean, kind of, that, Acid House was great because you could, you didn't even need to be self-conscious about it. You could just swallow a pill and go for it. Like.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. So what I would like to see now is I'd like to have Chic played with I Want Your Love, and I would like you to show some moves. There's a little space here. I'll move up. And I think that's fair enough, isn't it? I think so. Come on, Irvine. Come on. It's only just one move, okay? Come on. Okay,
On the condition you get up with me.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
No problem. I have no problem with that. All right?
Right.
To try my love and see how well it fits. Your love, I want your love.
We were just saying we didn't really want to talk anymore, we just want to dance, but never mind. And also, we were remembering the very first time I met Irvine was in the 90s, and it was towards the end of the 90s, and a friend of ours had organised a kind of very mini tour of authors, and we had to go to essentially nightclubs, because the idea was that we had to prove that the Chemical Generation could read. So we had to go to these clubs and then do these readings. Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, the main issue is could they write, basically.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah. Anyway, so we're going to move on now to Primal Scream, as we always should do. Higher Than the Sun. We have a member of Primal Scream here, just over there. Anyway, yes, Primal Scream.
Yeah, I mean, kind of. When I was really, I didn't really get into Acid House right at the inception of it. I remember I was because I was the heroin experiences. I was a bit gun shy around drugs after that. I kind of became a bit straight, and I didn't really like the idea of taking drugs. And I thought this, I'm not sure about this ecstasy thing. And I remember going into Shoom, which was Danny Rampling's club in South London, and I was the only person that wasn't off their tits on ecstasy. And I just didn't get it. I didn't get the music at all. And but it was around about that time that I kind of I got to know kind of Bobby Innes and Throb and all that, and they were kind of like rock and rollers, old punks who had kind of taken the same journey into Acid House. And the Screamadelica was obviously this kind of sort of. It was a kind of breakthrough album because it was a crossover album in a way. It was
like a phenomenon, wasn't it?
It was an incredible album, and it was like kind of you had that thing that I mean, Oakenfold was doing a similar thing with the Mondays, basically, but Weatherall produced this album with Primal Scream, which was kind of it was a kind of strange, groundbreaking album because it was like it was basically a rock and roll band doing Acid House, but which was pretty much unheard of at the time, and it was bringing the kind of that whole kind of composed sensibility to house music, which was basically just about beats. So it was phenomenal, and Higher Than the Sun was one of the best tracks, one of the standout tracks on the album.
Yeah, it's very true. I interviewed Bobby Gillespie around that time, and he said that basically every track on that album is essentially a different drug experience. That's the idea of it, really, that you move through different drugs. He was also, I think I could say this because it was true, he was also on drugs while I was actually interviewing him. Gouged out. Anyway, let's hear it. Primal Scream, Higher Than the Sun. We'll sit down for this one.
Higher than the sun.
slightly harder to dance to, Higher Than the Sun. The next track we've got is an Alabama 3 track called Hypo Full of Love. Alabama 3 from Brixton, great band.
Yeah, I mean, an amazing band, and it's kind of always kind of saddened me that the Alabama 3 aren't one of the biggest bands on the planet, because they should be, and they seemed like, when they had that Sopranos theme tune, it seemed like they were going to kind of hit it, you know, that Woke Up This Morning, and I remember they were playing on top of Clerkenwell Tube Station, Farringdon Tube Station in Clerkenwell, and we had this impromptu kind of party there, and they started playing, and it was kind of very early in the morning, and all the commuters were coming back and forward, and kind of, you know, you never get anything like that happening in London now. You know, it was
There's no room. You'd be moved on.
It was such great fun, and they've done some amazing music, and they put on fantastic shows. And it's that again a sort of a weird combination of sort of country and western music and kind of techno and acid house all sort of fused together, completely original, and it's been copied quite a lot now, but completely original the way they did it. So yeah.
Yeah. And did you meet them at all?
Yeah,
friends?
no, they're friends. You know, they're really good friends, and I've kind of known them sort of quite a long time, and you know, I think I've known Jake before we kind of got, because he was a big. He was very much in that kind of whole Glasgow scene, you know, that people like Bowie and Innes were before they kind of sort of came down to London, and so it was very. There was all the, you know, they all used to go to places like Industria, which was one of the clubs in Glasgow at the time, and you know, I used to go through from Edinburgh to places like, you know, Industria and the Sub Club and the Arches and all that, where they would all hang out. So. So I kind of knew Jake through that, and I got to know Rob quite well too.
Okay, I've got one more question before we play it, which is we've talked quite a lot about. I mean, basically, we've talked quite a lot about drugs and dancing, haven't we? And I wondered if you still go out to clubs, because you know I do occasionally. You know, and sometimes it's very funny, because if you tell your younger self that, you know, once you're past the age of, I don't know, 27, that you might want to still go out dancing, it's, you know, it's an appalling idea. But of course, we all still do.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of, I've started DJing again. Like, you know, it's the only way that somebody like me can get into a club without people calling the police. Basically, you know, I can kind of.
I have as well.
I said, you know. I wave this USB card and a pair of headphones and say, I'm actually here to play some music. Like, But yeah, no, it's actually, you know, it's funny, because there's certain clubs you go to. I mean, even in Miami, there's some clubs you go to and you think everybody's going to be young kids dancing away, and some it is, but it's a lot of old punters as well that have just gone back out again. Like, you know, think, oh well, you know, we've done all that. We've kind of we've had a domestic life. It's done now. We can't really be bothered sitting at home and watching Netflix until we die. You know, let's just go out and kind of and try and throw as much of an all-nighter as we can before our joints start to seize up, basically.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, let's hear Alabama 3, Hypo Full of Love. Okay, so that was Alabama 3, Hypo Full of Love. We've got two more tracks. That we've, as Irvine just pointed out, we've moved forward. We've moved forward in time. We've gotten all modern now, haven't we?
We've gone all cool and hip.
Okay, I know, sorry.
Which you knew was going to happen, didn't you?
Okay, so it's a track by Young Fathers called Toy. Ooh, somebody gasped. You're a fan. This is good. Okay, Young Fathers. It's quite hard to argue against Young Fathers, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it is. I mean, kind of, because they're sort of local guys, and I kind of got, you know, because they were, you know, they're all from Edinburgh, and they're all from the part of Edinburgh that I grew up in, and they were on my kind of radar very quickly, you know, and I've just never seen anything like them.
No, I know, it's not really like, it is music, but it's not, it's like a art performance or something.
It is, it's incredible, like, you know, they're completely, I like their attitude as well. They don't talk, you know, they don't talk about their influences at all. Like, you know, I was pretty much the same when, you know, everybody would ask me, what books have you read and all that, what have you been influenced by? And I would go like, fuck off, I don't read books and all that, just to be a cunt, basically. But also like kind of, Also, that urge to resist being categorised by people and put into a kind of box and all that. Literary people like to do that. Music people like to do that. You know, kind of. They like to sort of, and everybody does. We all do. We all like to put things in a little box so we can understand them easier. And they resisted that as well. You know, but I mean, so I kind of, you know, they're totally original and completely sort of fresh, and have that very. They're kind of three really good guys, but they have that kind of very determined kind of aesthetic to them that I kind of like and vibe on as well. You know, it was like, I mean, the good thing about it was that when I kind of got them to meet Danny, I mean, he had actually come into the music from a different angle as well, and he was so kind of blown away by it. I mean, he said, this is actually the soundtrack this is a feel for the whole movie. And so I got them along to, he says, do you want to come and meet Danny Boyle? And they went, nah. You want to bother? They're like, fuck him, basically, like, you know. And I was going, come on, boys, help me out here, man. Come along. Yeah, all right then. Like, you know. It's funny, they were looking for management as well, and they were like, I said, do you want to meet Alan McGee? Nah. You know, fucking not interested at all. Like, you know, but you know, so I kind of like that sort of very cool kind of Scottish contrariness that they have. But it was, you know, it was the kind of pulse of the film, basically. You know, their music was the pulse of Trainspotting too.
Yeah, it's very true.
And the new album, Cocoa Sugar, is absolutely amazing. It's a phenomenal. If you haven't listened to it, please do listen to it. And this is one of the most. This is a really interesting track from the album.
Okay, well, let's hear it. Yes, this is Young Fathers with Toy. Right, that was Young Fathers, Toy. We've got one track left, which made me laugh because this was not done intentionally, but it makes it seem really professional because the title of the track is DMT, and Irvine is on it. So, do you want to talk about this track?
Yeah, I kind of thought that it might be a nice idea to do a track for this, and I started kind of DJing again fairly recently, and I was MCing in Miami for Paranoid London. Like Quinn and Clams were kind of doing a DJ set in Miami, and I thought it would be like Arthur Baker's kind of legendary kind of producer, kind of sort of hip hop producer, lives in Miami, and he's a good friend. And he produced some acid house tracks that I'd done in the 90s. With Chris Needs and Henry Cullen and Sarah Jane Harrison, and we thought it'd be a good idea to do an old school kind of acid house song, basically, you know, a kind of really sort of a proper old acid house song, and kind of, you know, just as Renton being a kind of DJ manager and being in dance music and all that, and his life being in dance music. So we basically did this. We did this in a studio in Hackney.
I thought you were going to say Miami. I'm slightly
No,
disappointed.
we moved. We relocated to Hackney. We kind of to kind of sort of to get this together, basically. And this is it. It's just DMT, basically.
Okay. Shall we listen to DMT? Get the vibe? All right, let's have DMT. I don't know if you've noticed, but we faded it out because Irvine told me that it lasts for about 25 minutes. So, yeah, sorry everybody. But that was indeed the last track, DMT by Irvine, Arthur Baker and Paranoid London. So after this lovely event, talking to Irvine, he's going to be signing books at the back. You can buy them, $16.99 plus the rave bit. But I think before we do that, we should have a couple of questions from the floor, as you've all been so kind and listened to us. So
Be
we're going to have
gentle.
2 questions, and that's it. Who wants to ask a question? Look how lovely he is. He'll ask a question. Hello.
I'll kind of restate the question just so people didn't hear it if they didn't hear it at the back. When I write the characters now, do I see the characters as I wrote them originally, or do I see the characters like in film or on stage or whatever the actors' faces, basically? And the honest truth about it is I see the actors' faces like everybody else because, you know, it's so much more a visual medium, whether it's cinema, Cinema's a very powerful visual medium. Stage is quite powerful as well. If you see a really good actor on stage, you start to visualize the character in that way. So you have to do the horrible thing and go back to the original book and read the descriptions of these characters and how you originally envisaged them. And there's one thing a writer doesn't want to do, it's just read the original book. You know, anything they've done that's old, they don't want to go back to it, because all you see are the kind of horrible bits and the mistakes. You're like, did I really write that fucking sentence? How embarrassing. Like, you know. So, but yeah, I mean, so you have to, the images in cinema and in theatre, they kind of colonise your mind, basically, and you have to get back to your original characters.
Yeah, okay. Another question? One more? Hello?
Are you going to release the book as like a audio book with your voice?
No, the audiobook is the audiobook has been done. It's coming out, and it's done by a good friend of mine, a guy called Tam Dean Byrne, who's an amazing Edinburgh actor who is an old pal of mine who also grew up in Leith, and he's done a lot of the audiobooks. He also did a one-man show, Filth, on stage, and he's very, very good. He kind of sounds like me, but only better, if you can actually imagine. You can imagine anybody sounding better than me. His voice is better than mine. It's tough, I know, but I have to concede to Tam.
Okay, I am going to have one more question because I saw yours, yes.
Thank you. How important, I love what you were saying earlier about the Scots dialect having the rhythm that you were looking for in your writing. How important do you think that the dialect is to your books? Did you ever worry that was alienating to some people?
Yeah, I mean, it was alienating to me. For the dialect, you know, it's like simply because, no, I mean, I kind of wrote the first draft in standard English, and then I kind of thought, it's not really flying off the page for me, the characters aren't coming to life. So I changed it to a kind of Scottish phonetic dialect, and I looked at it, and I almost shat myself because I couldn't understand the word of it on the page. I mean, you're just, I mean, it's a visual thing, you're not used to seeing text on a page like that. And I thought, nobody's going to read this, nobody's going to stick with this. It doesn't matter whether they're Scottish, English, American, kind of, French, Italian. They're going to look at this on the page, and it does look a bit kind of strange. It looks like kind of gobbledygook, basically. But astonishingly, and I don't know if people would do this now with the kind of internet generation, the lower span of attention. I don't know whether people would stick with it to the same extent. But everybody did, and everybody seemed to find it very refreshing. And once you get the voice in your head for about 30 pages, you just go with it.
And also it means that you know who the character is. You always know, like, you don't even need to label it, do you? Because you know who they are almost immediately.
Yeah. I mean, they do have kind of their own sort of, even within that kind of Scottish kind of sort of, vernacular framework, they do have their own idiosyncrasies, their own speech patterns.
Yeah. Okay, I think we have reached the end of Irvine talking, sadly, although I'm sure he will be dancing later, if anyone wants to join him. So if you would like to get books and signs, and he'll be over there afterwards, but I'd just like to say, give a lovely round of applause for the fantastic Irvine
Thank you,
Welsh.
and Miranda too. Brilliant.